Hi folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Web Development Series. Today we're going to look more onto requests and how to make a proper login system. Also, we're going to learn about cookies and how to save our login information. And later in this video, or in the next one, we're going to adapt our login system to the most secure means. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, so let's take a current look at our login system. So our current login system is quite simple. So in this sign up page, all you can see, it checks the password for it being on the correct format, and then it checks for all of these input boxes, input fields to be correct, and then it just proceeds to input the data into the database to save the data, and that just by checking so it is not a duplicate. Other than that, it does not do anything else, and the login system doesn't do much as well. It just checks for the credentials to be correct, and then just saves your ID, the current ID, and if you are authenticated, and your username. But we're going to have to adapt that for more security when you do requests. We're going to add something to our requests. Now, firstly, let's start by setting cookies. So a cookie would make it that it's saved on the local client, because most of the data is saved into the server. Nothing is really saved into the client. But if you logged in, and you don't want that to expire in a short time, what you could do is set cookies to save. Cookies are basically just variables that you store locally onto the client machine and that have an expiration date. So they are there in the browser saved, even though you close the browser and reopen it, and they are there until they do expire. After a certain time, you can set that expiration time, because most of the processing is done by the server. So one thing is to set a cookie when you do indeed log in. So what you do is just go set cookie, and then you have to put in the name of your variable. So the name of your cookie, which is generally going to be a string, and we're going to call that authenticated, and we're going to set its value as true, and the expiration date is going to be the current time plus, let's say, 1 hour. This is going to be just like that, and you have to specify path, so like that, and we're going to put just the default path. And else we're gonna set cookie, one more cookie, and this is gonna be ID, and it's gonna be set to the session ID, and that's also gonna have the same expiration time, because we want them to expire at the same time. You don't want to save one and then just to delete the other. And also, let's set the username as well, so we don't have to scatter around for that. Okay. And session username, and I'm gonna also set the time plus 1 hour, and we're gonna save all that information. And now, the next time we do want to start the session, so you can see over here, session start. Now, we do not have a home page, so I'm going to just do that right now. I'm going to call it homepage.php really quick, and that for a reason, because we want to cut these mostly if the session hasn't been started yet. Now we did do that, but here what we generally want to do is if you enter the home page and do a session start like that, you generally do want to just check for the credentials and automatically log in. So what you do is if we're going to do an if, and if is set, and then to access a cookie you just do like this in the global array cookie, and then you just have to input the name, and in our case it's going to be authenticated. And if is set, and if that certain cookie is true, we don't have to do that because it already returns true. In that case, turn session auth to true. And what you also want to do, so we're gonna just open up these. We're gonna do if is set. Oh yeah, and we want to check for all of them to be set because I want to abort this if that isn't the case. So let's just do that from the get-go to set, to just check if they are indeed filled. Okay, and we're gonna set the cookie to be ID. And if all of that is set, in that case, you know what, let's just copy that from the login form over there. And this, I'm just gonna cut this line here, and I'm gonna just put that back here, and this is gonna be now the cookie result. So cookie, and here username, and here's gonna be cookie ID. So that will check for us, and we'll fill that information once we do get into the page. So this is how we're gonna save our login. And we generally want to do that at every session start. So what I'm going to do is just go into the functions file here, and I'm going to make a function check cookies. And that's not going to get any parameters. And what that will do is just do all of this thing over here. It's just going to do all of that checking for us, and it's going to autofill those stuff for us. Or to move it over. Yeah, let's check that. So what we're gonna do is go session. You know what? No, we're gonna do the check cookies functions. So we're gonna do to the home page, and it's gonna be, I think, import. No, it's not import. Require and include. So it's include. It's gonna do include, and in here we're gonna do function dot PHP. Now you might just ask yourself, now why do we use there require, and here do we use include? Now there is a simple reason for that. Now we cannot complete the sign up process without having those files. So require basically will throw out an error if this file wouldn't be found. So if this file isn't found, this will throw an error. But if we use include as here, if the file doesn't exist, it will not include it. But if it does, it will include it and will not throw an error. So because of the fact that I don't want to go and check if the function exists, we're going to use require. And we're going to do check cookie or cookies. Cookies. Okay, and that will check cookies for us. And now, if I will take a look and do log in. Oh yeah, and once we do check those, once we do access them, that means we refreshed the cookies. And in that case, we want to go again and set cookie. And to do that, I'm just going to go to the login form and get all of that data here and put it into the functions. So if we did manage to get the data and we did do it, refresh these cookies. If we call set cookie on a cookie that's already set, like authenticated, it's just going to replace the whole thing. So don't worry about that. So once we do check cookies, in order to check that, if I go to login, okay, there we go. And I'm going to get, I think that I'm going to use this. Oh yeah, perfect. This has autofill. Oh, welcome.php doesn't exist. Homepage. Functions. Okay. Okay, let's go back to the login. You see, that means it redirects us because it did find us as having been logged in, because it did check that and it redirected us. So what I'm going to do is just get this nav bar here and just copy it to my clipboard. And I'm going to just go here into the HTML body. And you know what? Let's just copy the whole thing all together and just do this and just say welcome. And I'm going to just go ahead and remove the form here. And what I'm going to do as well is just open containing folder and do rename this to welcome, because it does redirect us and I don't want to modify any of the previous code that we did use. So you can see now we are logged in. Now what happens if I go here and just go like this? It's going to check cookies and it will see that I'm already logged in. Now watch what happens. Now if I go to login, I get redirected back because I am logged in. It did set that from the cookies. Now they are refreshed. Hold on to that. So if I close this window and I go to back to this URL, but I'm going to go to login, where I do not do that cookie checking thing, it will still remember the session because I did not close the browser. So if you do not close the browser, it will remember the session to be noted. But if I close it out, and it will delete all of that session, it will end the session. If I do go and go to welcome, it will recognize that I was already logged in. It's got that from the cookies. But if I just retake out from the session, I'm not. Now auth in line 5 here. So let's check that real quick. Oh, if is set. Okay. And session auth. Now, you might say, how will this fix the error? Because we do check for its existence, but if it's not existent, it will check for this and it will throw the same error because it's not set. You see? Like here, it says undefined index because this auth doesn't exist yet. We did not set it. And thus, if this returns false, it is not set, and we still try to access it, it will still throw an error. But that would be the logical thing that you would think of, but it's not that case. You see, in an OR statement, if at least one of them it is true, the whole expression will be true. So that means, let me bring up the whiteboard over here. If I do have a statement where I have one statement and another statement, if I find this as being false, it will proceed on checking this one to see if it's true, and it will make the expression true by having at least one of the items being true. But if this OR expression will have one element here true, it will know by default that the whole thing will be indeed true, because there is one at least item, and no matter what the others will be, it will be true, so it does not waste time checking these. Now, in the case of an AND expression, where all of the items do have to be true in order for the expression to be true, if it finds this false, that means the whole expression will be false because not all of the items are true, and thus the expression is not valid. So it will invalidate the whole expression, not gonna continue checking. You see? Just like in our case, it's not gonna continue checking, and thus it's not gonna access this because this is false. It doesn't exist, but it's not gonna proceed on checking it because it knows the expression will be not true. If the first element is true, because this is an AND expression and all of them have to be true, it means that also this has to be, so it's going to check this. So long story short, once it finds at least one item that will make the expression invalid, it's not going to continue checking it. So now let's get on dealing with those requests now that we dealt with the cookie problem. So what I'm gonna do is just gonna clear the whole whiteboard thing that we have over here, and I'm gonna explain again how requests work. So if you didn't watch any of the previous episodes, so basically you have your client computer, sorry for my poor drawing, and you have here your keyboard and mouse, and here is the server that you're gonna connect to. Okay, so what's gonna happen is that you access a certain route, URL, which is basically a shortcut for an IP address, one of those things with many numbers in it. That sounds like 192.168. blah 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 in most of the cases if you're looking at the default gateway. So basically you access one of those routes, one of those IPs. So you send a request. So basically you send a request. The server will do its own logic, which in this case is this over here, and then it will return a response. And basically that response will be any data. In this case, our case right here, we are sending back the whole page, the whole text page. That means all of this HTML, which in our case gets processed and displayed by our browser. But sometimes you don't have to request the whole page. You can make an Ajax request. And that basically is, you have some computer logic. So basically, you don't send just HTML. You can send some JavaScript code as well, a script. You can send a script so you can run some logic here as well. So basically what happens, you access that URL, you say, hey, I want to access this page, please send me back something to display, and the server sends you all of that HTML that your browser will process. But also, it might send a script, a JavaScript. So that's basically what we're going to do in this series. We're going to just explain how all of this works so that we can continue later on in the series. So basically, it sends a script, and you can run some logic with it. The script is going to run on your machine continuously, and the script might make requests on its own, Ajax requests. So basically it says, hey, please send me that data, and it does this request, and as a response, it might get a data. It might not get a whole page to display. It might get some data, that Ajax request. You can configure it to, let's say, return a variable, true or false, or to return an object. Most of the times you're going to use to return an object, and it's going to send back an object, and that script now will process it, what it received. Or you access a new route, this boy here, or basically you can customize that to get to get like something.com/welcome without the .php, basically not the file address, and it's gonna send back just some text or just that object basically as a JSON. So if you don't know what JSON is, it stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and it's basically putting all the object into a text. We're going to dive deeper later on what an object is and how to use that, perhaps in the next episode. And then the script does its thing, and it, let's say, modifies live without refreshing the page. Or you go access another route, one of those /login, and it's going to send that request. It says, hey, I accessed this route, and it sends back a page to display. So basically that's how requests work. You send a request, and it gets you with a response, may it a JSON or basically a whole page altogether, new HTML to display. So we're going to play with that in the next episode. We're going to take a look on how to write scripts and how to manipulate objects from our client side, because that script will run on your computer. It will do certain things until you refresh the page and access a new route and do another request, basically. And these Ajax requests that I was talking about, the script does also access a certain route. But let's say that /login sends you the whole HTML page for login, but the route /display will just send back a JSON. So you access the .login from the browser, and then your little script that sent back from the login route will access the display route, and it will get back the JSON, and then the script on your computer will process that object right there and will decide what to do next. It still uses routes, but you can use routes to either display the whole page or either just get objects. So basically, you can use routes to return anything, but in the main point, you're gonna get pages, the HTML code to display, the HTML script, the markup. So next time we're going to look into scripts and how to, let's say, make a live button work, and how to manipulate object and what an object is. Now, the way that we're going to make our login system work is on the parts that require the user to be authenticated. We're not going to send just the boolean, yes, he is authenticated, and his ID, because then anybody could make requests on his behalf, sending that ID and that boolean. So the way that we're gonna do it in order to protect it is that when we're gonna send, when we're gonna log in, the server will send us a token that is generated randomly, and we're gonna use that so that when we make a request, we send that token as well, like a password, to always ensure that we have a way of sending the requests without them being being validated. Now you would ask, why wouldn't we send the password itself for the account? Well, if somebody intercepts your request, they can figure out the password. Or anyway, we're gonna send the hashed version, and that would cause problems. Or even if we send the unhashed version, the hackers could basically just copy that password we send on the request and make requests on our behalf. So what we do is we log in, and the server sends us a temporary password, let's call it the token, and every time we make a request, use that token. But the way that we're going to protect it, so it's not vulnerable like the password, is by changing it. So every, let's say, hour or every 30 minutes, we have to just, let's say, re-log in with the password from, let's say, cookie to refresh that token. So yeah, guys, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, click that subscribe button, and see you next time on How to IT.